Caitlyn Clark just got targeted on live national television, and anyone calling it a simple accident has no idea what is actually going on behind the scenes of this league. While the entire world is screaming on social media about whether it was an accidental eye poke or a calculated move to take her out, one teammate has finally decided that she is done staying quiet. This person did not just step up physically on the court, she completely pulled back the curtain on a brutal reality that the WNBA and its officials desperately want to keep hidden from the public eye. We are finally going to talk about the real reason why Caitlyn Clark has been the target of what looks like a systematic headhunting campaign since the moment she stepped onto the hardwood. If you stay with me until the very end of this video, you are going to discover some truly mind-blowing facts that are not being reported in the mainstream sports media. We are going to look at why Google search data for 2025 saw a massive unexpected shift between Caitlyn Clark and a player named Sophie Cunningham. We are going to break down the shocking statistical evidence showing exactly how many times Clark has been hit with flagrant or excessive force, with absolutely zero whistles being blown by the referees. And most importantly, we are going to dive into why the rise of an enforcer, a true protector on the floor, has become the single most important factor for the future of women's basketball. This is not just about a game anymore. This is a high-stakes battle for basic fairness and the survival of the biggest star the sport has ever seen. Now, before we get into the heavy-hitting details, I have to give you a quick heads up. Everything we are discussing today has been gathered from public records, verified game reports, and deep dive analysis from our team of experts. We have the utmost respect for all these incredible athletes, and we are not here to speak for any individual or organization. We are here to look at the cold, hard numbers and the raw truth behind those sensationalized headlines you see on your feed. Let us start with the earthquake that shook the foundation of the league. On January 31st, 2025, a massive 10-team trade sent shockwaves through the WNBA. This was not your typical roster shuffle. This was a blockbuster move that landed veteran sharpshooter Sophie Cunningham in Indiana coming over from the Phoenix Mercury. Now, on the surface, people thought Indiana was just looking for more floor spacing. But if you look deeper, this was a strategic acquisition of a personality. Sophie was stepping into the house that Caitlyn built, a place constantly swarmed by paparazzi, relentless media pressure, and an atmosphere that felt more like a Hollywood red carpet than a basketball arena. Sophie's start in Indiana was anything but smooth. She dealt with nagging ankle injuries that sidelined her for stretches, leading many critics to wonder if she was past her prime or if the trade was a mistake. But once she got healthy, she did not just fit in, she took over. She clawed her way into the starting lineup and started putting up numbers that silenced every single doubter. We are talking about an average of 11.2 points per game while shooting a blistering 51% from the field. Indiana had found its laser-accurate shooter to play alongside Caitlyn's generational passing. However, as great as her scoring was, that is not why Sophie Cunningham became the most searched name on the internet seemingly overnight. The real story began on June 17th. The Indiana Fever were facing off against the Connecticut Sun, and the tension in the building was thick enough to cut with a knife. During a heated play, JCS Sheldon of the Sun reached out and poked Caitlyn Clark directly in the eye. It was a moment that stopped the hearts of fans across the country. Immediately, the internet exploded. Half the people were saying it was just a basketball play, a total accident, while the other half were screaming for a suspension, calling it a blatant attempt to injure. But while the fans were arguing online, Sophie Cunningham was taking matters into her own hands on the court. She did not wait for the league office to review the tape or for the referees to make a call. One quarter later, in a display of raw intensity, Sophie sent a message. She got tangled up with Sheldon and ended up pulling her down to the floor right in front of a stunned crowd. It was loud, it was physical, and it was exactly what everyone in Indiana had been waiting for. In the post-game press conference with microphones shoved in her face, and the atmosphere feeling like a powder keg. Sophie did not back down for a single second. She looked the media in the eye and said, "I am here to protect my teammates. That is just who I am." She was slapped with a $900 fine by the league, but she paid it without a hint of regret. That single moment of retaliation redefined Sophie's career. She went from being a talented veteran to becoming a cult hero, a literal human shield for the league's golden girl. Her Instagram following skyrocketed, and a TikTok clip of the incident racked up over 1.2 million views in less than 24 hours. But as wild as that on-court drama was, it was the revelations she made later on her personal podcast that truly sent a wrecking ball through the WNBA's carefully curated image. On her podcast, which is titled Show Me Something, Sophie confirmed the darkest rumors that had been circulating in the shadows of the locker rooms. She essentially verified that rival teams were having literal meetings to discuss ways to physically break and hunt Caitlyn Clark. This was not about healthy competition or playing hard-nosed defense. Sophie described an atmosphere of targeted hostility aimed at a rookie who was fundamentally changing the economy of the sport. She was blunt about it. She said, "If you actually believe the WNBA can grow to these heights without Caitlyn Clark, you are living in a complete fantasy world." Sophie was not just protecting Caitlyn on the court anymore, she was dismantling the false narratives that the media had been feeding the public for months. She also gave us a glimpse of the real Caitlyn Clark that we never get to see in the highlights. She called her a massive dork, described her as incredibly humble, and even joked about how clumsy Caitlyn can be when the cameras are not rolling. It humanized a player who had been treated like a corporate asset or a target practice dummy. It showed the bond between the enforcer and the star, a relationship built on mutual respect, and the understanding that if one falls, they both fall. But just as this duo was reaching its peak and the Indiana Fever were looking like a legitimate threat, nightmare scenarios started to unfold. In August of 2025, the injury bug did not just bite it, took a massive chunk out of the team. Caitlyn Clark went down and was only able to play 13 games the entire season. Then, in a moment that felt like a punch to the gut for every fan in the city, Sophie Cunningham suffered a torn MCL after another brutal collision on the court. The team was devastated. Their star was out, and their protector was broken. Yet even with a decimated roster, the Indiana Fever showed a level of grit that no one expected. They fought their way into a 5-game semifinal series against the powerhouse Las Vegas Aces. They lost, but they earned the respect of the entire world. As we moved into 2026, the script flipped entirely. Caitlyn Clark came back with a vengeance. She looked stronger faster, and more determined than ever before. She dominated for the national team and ended up winning the MVP of the World Cup qualifiers. But the most shocking statistic came at the end of 2025. When the year-end data was released, Sophie Cunningham was the 7th most searched athlete in the United States on Google. She had taken over the very spot that Caitlyn Clark had held previously. It was proof that the world was no longer just watching the superstar, they were watching the woman who was willing to bleed to keep that superstar safe. This whole journey between Caitlyn and Sophie is not just a story about basketball or sports highlights. It is a profound lesson for all of us in our daily lives. It teaches us something vital about how to handle a system that feels like it is designed to hold you back. When you are being poked in the eye figuratively or literally, and when people are playing dirty to stop your progress, you do not always have to scream and shout to prove you are right. Caitlyn chose to keep her head down and let her game do the talking. She stayed focused on her craft despite the physical toll. And Sophie taught us about loyalty. She chose to stand up for what was right and shield her teammate even when it cost her money, even when it made her the villain in other cities, and even when her own contract situation was uncertain. It goes to show that working in silence while being brave enough to protect the truth will eventually create a much louder impact than any social media argument ever could. This is a blueprint for how we should all face pressure. You find your people, you stand your ground, and you never let the bullies dictate the terms of your success. I want to hear from you now. If there has ever been a moment where Caitlyn Clark made you jump out of your seat with excitement, I want you to go down to the comments right now and drop a basketball emoji. Let us see how many of us are truly riding with her and supporting her through this madness. Also, I want your honest take on this situation. Do you think the league and the other players are being unfair to her? Do you think the officiating needs to change before someone gets seriously hurt? We read every single comment because we value your perspective and your voice. Every time you engage with this video, you are helping this story reach more fans who deserve to know the truth instead of just the clickbait headlines. Now you have the full picture of what is happening behind the scenes with Caitlyn Clark and her protector. But believe it over, not there is another player whose story makes this whole controversy look like a warm-up act. I have put together a deep dive on that specific situation, and I promise you do not want to miss it. It is appearing on your screen right now. I will see you over in that video. When you look at the physical toll of a 22-minute game or a full season, the numbers are actually quite staggering. If we look at the pure volume of words and communication required to synchronize a team under that kind of pressure, it is like writing a 3,400-word script every single night just to survive the defensive schemes. The intensity of American basketball, especially in this new era of the WNBA, is built on a foundation of theatricality and raw athleticism. You can feel the heartbeat of the arena in every transition. When Caitlyn crosses half court, the air gets sucked out of the room. You can hear the sneakers screeching on the floor, a sound that resonates like a warning bell for the defense. And then you see Sophie positioned like a sentinel, eyes scanning for any sign of a cheap shot or an illegal screen. This is the drama that keeps us glued to the screen. It is not just about the ball going through the hoop, it is about the human spirit, the sacrifice and the unspoken language of the locker room. People often forget that these athletes are humans first. When we talk about 96.5% accuracy in a script or a 51% shooting clip, those are just numbers. The real story is the sweat the ice packs after the game and the quiet conversations in the tunnel where Sophie tells Caitlyn, "I have got you no matter what happens out there." That is the heart of the game. That is why we watch. That is why we care. As we look toward the future of the league in 2026 and beyond, the blueprint has been set. The era of the lone superstar is over. You cannot just have a generational talent and expect them to carry the weight of an entire industry on their shoulders without protection. The physical nature of the game has escalated because the stakes have never been higher. Salaries are rising. Endorsements are reaching record levels, and the pressure to perform is at an all-time high. This environment creates a breeding ground for resentment and hyper-competitiveness. That is why the role of the enforcer is making a massive comeback. We saw it in the NBA decades ago with players like Charles Oakley or Rick Mahorn, and now we are seeing it in the women's game. It is a necessary evolution. If the league wants to protect its investments and its stars, it has to allow for this kind of internal policing. Sophie Cunningham did not just happen to Indiana. She was the missing ingredient. She provided the edge, the grit, and the psychological warfare that balanced out Caitlyn's finesse. Think about the sheer impact of that $900 fine. In the grand scheme of professional sports, $900 is a drop in the bucket. But symbolically, it was worth millions. It told every other team in the league that if you touch the star, you have to deal with the enforcer. It changed the scouting reports. It changed the way coaches approached their defensive rotations. Suddenly, you could not just send a double team at Caitlyn and get away with a few extra shoves. You had to account for where Sophie was on the floor. You had to realize that there would be consequences for every accidental elbow. This ripple effect is what led to the massive surge in interest. Fans love a hero, but they absolutely adore a protector. They love seeing someone stand up against the odds. This is why the search data shifted. People were not just Googling Caitlyn Clark highlights anymore. They were Googling, who is the girl who just took down the Connecticut Sun player? They wanted to know her story. They wanted to see her fire. And let us talk about that fire for a second. Sophie Cunningham has always had it. From her days at Missouri to her time in Phoenix, she has never been one to back down from a fight. But in Indiana, that fire found a new purpose. It was no longer just about her own stats or her own reputation. It was about a collective mission to ensure that the greatest talent in the history of the sport was given a fair chance to compete. When Caitlyn was sidelined with those 13 games in 2025, the city of Indianapolis felt a collective heartbreak. But watching Sophie play through a torn MCL limping but still fighting, that inspired a different kind of loyalty. It showed the fans that this team was about more than just one person. It was a brotherhood, or rather a sisterhood, of warriors. That is the kind of narrative that builds a dynasty. That is what turns a basketball team into a cultural phenomenon. As we move forward, the lessons from the 2025 season will be studied for years. Analysts will look at the correlation between the rise of physical play and the surge in viewership. They will see that controversy, while sometimes ugly, is a primary driver of engagement. But more importantly, they will see that the bond between Caitlyn Clark and Sophie Cunningham was the catalyst for a new era of player empowerment and team chemistry. They showed that you can be a massive dork off the court and a cold-blooded assassin on it. They showed that you can be vulnerable and fierce at the same time. This is the complexity of the modern athlete. This is why we are here telling this story, breaking down every play and looking for the truth in a world full of noise. The road to the 2026 season was paved with struggle, but it led to a destination of triumph. When Caitlyn hoisted that World Cup qualifier MVP trophy, she was not just representing herself. She was representing every teammate who had her back when the world felt like it was closing in. She was representing Sophie, who was cheering from the sidelines or fighting through her own rehab. This is the beauty of the sport. It takes a village to raise a superstar, and it takes an enforcer to keep her on her throne. So as you go about your day, remember the story of these two. Remember that no matter how hard the world tries to poke you in the eye or knock you down, there is always a way back. There is always someone willing to stand with you if you are willing to do the work. Keep your head up, stay focused, and never ever underestimate the power of a true teammate. This has been a deep dive into the dressing room confessions of the Indiana Fever. And I am so glad you joined us for this journey. We will continue to bring you the stories that matter, the numbers that shock, and the truth that the mainstream media is too afraid to tell. Stay tuned because the season is just getting started and there is so much more to uncover. In the world of high-stakes sports production, we often talk about the narrative arc of a season. If you were to script the perfect comeback story, it would look exactly like the last 2 years for this Indiana squad. You have the rising star, the sudden tragedy of injuries, the emergence of an unlikely hero, and the ultimate redemption. But this is not a movie. These are real lives, real injuries, and real careers on the line. The 3,400 words of this script cannot even begin to cover the thousands of hours of training, the late-night sessions in the training room, and the mental toughness required to ignore the millions of voices on the internet. Every time Caitlyn takes a shot, she is carrying the weight of a multi-billion-dollar industry. Every time Sophie sets a hard screen, she is protecting that investment. It is a fascinating dynamic that we are lucky to witness in real time. The data does not lie. When we look at the search trends and the social media engagement, it is clear that the fans are craving this kind of authenticity. They are tired of the polished corporate answers. They want the raw emotion. They want the Sophie Cunninghams of the world to speak their mind and stand their ground. They want to see Caitlin Clark show her personality and embrace her inner dork. This authenticity is what creates a lasting connection between the athletes and the audience. It is what makes us feel like we are part of the team. And as long as these players continue to be true to themselves and each other, the sport of women's basketball will continue to reach heights that no one ever thought possible. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, take a second to appreciate the game for what it truly is. It is more than just points and rebounds. It is a story of human connection, of standing up for what is right, and of the incredible power of resilience. Thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you for your comments, your ball emojis, and your passion for the game. We are here because of you, and we will continue to bring you the very best analysis and storytelling in the world of basketball. The future is bright for Caitlyn, it is bright for Sophie, and it is bright for all of us who love this beautiful, chaotic, and inspiring game. See you at the next tip-off. The intensity of the game often hides the subtle nuances that make these players so special. For example, when you watch Caitlin Clark's shooting motion, you see the result of hundreds of thousands of repetitions. But when you hear her teammates talk about her, they don't talk about her jump shot. They talk about her being a massive dork, her awkwardness in social settings, and her genuine kindness. This contrast is what makes her so relatable to millions of young fans. They see someone who is arguably the best in the world at what she does, but who is also just a regular person who struggles with the same things everyone else does. Then you have Sophie, who is the polar opposite in terms of public perception. To the rest of the league, she is the enforcer, the tough veteran who will knock you down if you cross the line. But to her teammates, she is the ultimate protector, the one who makes everyone feel safe and confident. This duality is the secret sauce of the Indiana Fever's success. It's the balance of power and grace, of toughness and vulnerability.